Hey, my name is Jazz. I'm going to show you how to make this ceramic pendant. I start the process by wedging out the clay and then flattening it out. I'm doing this to make it easier for me to put it through the slab roller. I pat it down a few times and flip it over just to make it even. I plan on making a lot of these pendants, so I do it twice. Now I'm ready to take it over to the slab roller. At the slab roller, I'm trying to find the brown clay canvas to make sure that it has a surface that it won't stick to. Once I found the right canvas, I am now able to put the clay that I flattened down onto the canvas and align it with the slab roller. I want to make sure the canvas doesn't get stuck, so I do that with the bottom layer and then the top layer. Here you can see it's all lined up and it's the brown canvas. Now I adjust the slab roller to allow for it to go through. The slab roller is adjusted so it's slightly lower than the piece of clay that I want to put through it. Every time I put the piece of clay through the slab roller, I do the same thing, adjusting so it's slightly lower than the piece. As this is repeated, the slab of clay gets thinner, and I do this process until I reach the desired thickness for my project. This takes a little bit of time, so I sped it up so you can see the process but not spend forever here. I was able to get to this level, and as you can see, it's a lot thinner than it started out. Now it's time to smooth the surface. As you can see, the canvas was a little texturized. I'm using a rib here to make it nice and smooth. Texture's not bad, it's just not what I was looking for this project. I usually do one side, then move over to a workstation and flip it over so I can now rib this side. After I'm done ribbing the other side, I want to make sure that I'm cleaning up as I go so I'm not taking over the shared space. So here you see me put away the canvas. Now it's time to have fun. So I have these plastic cutters that are for jewelry. I'm trying to decide which ones I like the most. I have never done this project before, so I was trying to find something that was bigger because it is a pendant and that would showcase the glaze well. Out of all the cutters I had, I was able to select 7 that I liked the most and I would try out for this project. Now before I could start cutting, I noticed that the cutters were a little dirty from my last project. I made some jewelry with porcelain, so I wanted to clean those off first. After cleaning, they were wet, so it makes it harder to cut, so I wanted to dry them, and now I can get to cutting out the shapes. After cutting out the shape, I'm able to push it through, and at this point I realized I didn't have anything to put these guys on, so I ran and got some bats that were sitting in the corner so I can cut them out and place them on the bat as I go. This process took quite a bit of time, but with some nice tunes from Alexa, I got through it. After finishing a bat, I'm able to put another bat on top that keeps a nice weight on the pieces so they don't start warping under the fan, and that's where I place them after I'm done with the first batch of pendants. I keep cutting out shapes until there's no more clay left. After cutting out shapes, I'm able to ball this all up and wedge it to reuse in another project later. Now I get to move on to texturizing the shapes. Here I found a small bowl to put some cornstarch in. The cornstarch would have been nice to have when cutting out the shapes, but I didn't know we had it until, well, here. Nothing I can do about it now, so moving on to texture. So I looked around the studio to see if I can find a tool to add some nice texture, and I found a pencil. I was looking for something with a curved end, and this is the closest I could get to it, so I just used that. And here I'm taking off some of the dry, semi-dry pieces I cut out. Now I'm adding a high fire wire piece into each shape. Please make sure that you use high fire wire. These are pre-cut pieces, but if you don't use high fire wire, it will melt in the kiln, I guarantee you. From there, I move on to adding the texture, so I sprinkle a little bit of cornstarch on each piece and start tapping away with the end point or the eraser of the pencil. The pencil's adding dips or dents into the clay where the glaze will pool later and add a nice little effect to it. And now I can repeat the process. I grab the other tray of shapes, add high fire wire to each piece, and tap away. Once I have finished this second batch, I go back over the pieces to refine edges and stamp with my Potter stamp. Some of the not so dry ones required me to cut them off with the rib, but most of them I was able to twist off. After they had some time to dry under the fan, I'm able to go back and smooth out the edges. Because I wasn't able to cut these out with a saran wrap, I just want to make sure that they're not going to cut or be scratchy in any way, so I'm running my finger over the edges to make sure they're nice and rounded. And there you have it, a finished pendant. Isn't it cute? And of course, you gotta dance your way through projects, at least I do. Maybe a little singing is involved. And we're done. They're all stacked up, ready to be moved towards the kiln room. Since these pendants are stacked up, I'm not really worried about them warping all that much, and they are a perfect level of thickness. When they're dry, they'll be loaded into the kiln and fired for bisque. Once they come out of bisque, I get to do my favorite part, glaze. I wish you luck following along and making your own pendants. See you next project.